Hello everybody and welcome back to another photography related video here on my channel. In today's video is a beautiful fall day. It was raining earlier today, but now all of a sudden the sun's out. It is 48, basically 50 degrees outside. It's amazing. Some of the trees still have color. They're still orange and yellow. Some of them are dead and some of them still have green. And of course we have wind. On top of wind, we do have a massive storm cloud that has not really opened up in a while, but it is still up above us and it'll probably rain later. I'm just really excited because it is beautiful outside. It's cold. The last couple years out in the desert, living out there for the military was absolutely terrible, especially because we were in Las Vegas. So this is a blessing in disguise. I'm so thankful. I thank God a lot right now just for how beautiful it is, how cold it is, and how much I'm just so much more happier and in my element. And I also want to go and take photographs a lot. In today's video, there's nothing much I'm actually going to do. There's no real plot of this video. It's just mainly walking around, seeing what kind of photographs I can take, also what kind of video clips I can get, hopefully good sound type clips, and just having fun. That's the main thing here on my channel that I like to do, is just have fun and just see what I can come up with. If you see my past couple of photography challenge videos, I did photography challenge like bird watching, and then I also did where I was just bored and I just had to get out, so I took a lot of photographs. If you've seen those two, you probably understand how this video will look. It'll be very similar to that. As always, I'm using my R6 Mark II right now, and I have my EF 50mm. It's a 1.8. I got it many years ago. In my camera bag, I do have my trusted Canon 80D if I want to do any other type shots or like behind the scenes type video shots. I mainly will be using the 18 to 135. This is a 3.5 to 5.6 for my Canon 80D because it is a crop sensor. I might also add it onto my R6 just for a little bit more focal range. Or the last lens I might throw on is my RF 100mm macro lens. It is a 2.8, and these are just the two ones that I have back up. My main thing is to mainly try and use a 50mm. I want to challenge myself, especially because it's so light and so small. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. One of the first places I want to try and take a couple photos is right here at the side of the woodshed. I just love texture, and also this little window with the wood stacked up on the inside, and also maybe trying to use reflections. Another example is this photo on the back side of the woodshed, or actually it's towards the driveway, and I have taken a few photos in the past of this. I love the way that the wood siding looks, and especially with these vines. Last time I took a photo of this window, the vine growing up it was more green, less dead. It gives more of a true fall vibe, and I just love it. And then we also have this Ford tractor sitting on the other side of the woodshed. Since the paint is chipping off and it's old, a little bit of patina and rust, I feel like maybe a black and white would be really good. I've already photographed this tractor multiple times, more so in my board photography video, and that was all in color, I do believe, so maybe throwing in a couple black and whites in this video would be really cool. Going to a couple photos. First, I have this before and after. We have just of the trees. It was more of a warm-up shot, to be honest, but I made it look a little bit more fall, moody, lifted the shadows a little bit, and kept the sky pretty much the same tone and color. Then I have the woodshed, and like I said, I was really enjoying the window because you can see the wood on the other side of it, and also the texture throughout the entire woodshed. This one in particular, you could see a green bug more so on the before, up where the second panel or the top panel meets this lower panel, and also you can see the cobweb. I think a black and white of this photo was just so amazing. I thought it brought out so much of that texture. I hope you can see what I see. Sometimes I just look at photos more so for the aspect of textures, and here lately I've been really obsessed with them again. And then we have a photo of technically my husband's truck through that same window. So there's 6 panes total on the bottom side of the glass for the woodshed. You can still see a little bit of the wood stacked behind, and then you can see it's a little bit distorted in a way, but I kind of like how the Duramax is sitting there next to the house, and it almost is completely the shape of the truck. The bed is a little bit messed up because of the window pane, but honestly it's okay. And I like the edit that I did. It's not necessarily super crazy. It's not something I normally do. It's very moody, more orange and teal, but I feel like it was just more of an experiment, and I was honestly happy with it, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. And then like I said, I wanted to try and maybe photograph the Ford tractor in black and white. So here's the before and here's the after. For the most part, I just kept it very simple. I made sure that in black and white it was more contrasty. When it comes to my black and whites, I absolutely love contrast, and that's one thing that has helped me in the past differentiate between other people who have black and white, because a lot of times you just slap on black and white and think it looks good. Me, I try and tweak it just a little bit to where it's more contrasty, more vivid in a way, and sometimes it just brings out more detail or even shadows. It helps make them more strong and dramatic. I hope that makes sense. Moving along down towards the barn, we do have this Honda that's been sitting here. I did photograph this in the last video as well, but I thought I'd include it because the grass and trees and the foliage around it has kind of died a little bit since the last time I photographed it. Now we're walking next to the barn, and here I have a few ideas of just random trees and random leaves and things that I just find really interesting. I'm just looking around, looking up, looking down. I think I said this so many times before. If you normally shoot at eye level, try getting down low or even looking up high, and you might find more interesting things to photograph or things that are a little bit more unique, if that makes sense. And then of course, like I said earlier, we do still have the storm cloud above us. I was waiting on it to open up and just start pouring, but it did not happen. But I thought maybe this, if I could get it in the background of the barn or something, it would look so good. Moving on to more before and afters, we do have this little tree that was growing on the side of the barn. You can kind of see the ladders in the background hanging up on the side of the barn, and I love the red leaves. It was the only spot on this entire tree that had red leaves, and of course I had to make it a little bit more moody for fall. So it is very vibrant, very orangey, but at the same time I thought it was something different than I normally do, and I really enjoyed how this one came out. Next we do have the barn, just a simple looking up shot. I thought this was really cool because it was more symmetrical in a way, the barn itself, but then when you look at the sky, you can tell how the clouds are. You got a little bit of the storm cloud on the one side and then blue sky on the right side. So in theory, I thought it was going to turn out good. I didn't like it so much in color because it just looked more muted, almost like it was already naturally in black and white. So I went ahead and threw it, of course, in black and white. For the most part, I just brightened up the barn, added a little bit more clarity into the barn, or more, I guess, texture. And then I kept the sky the same. I didn't go crazy with the sky. I left it basically just blank and out of focus compared. I wanted to bring more attention to the barn instead of the sky. Next, we have some random weeds, and I absolutely love how the RF 100mm, since it's a macro lens and also more so the f-stop that I was using, I love how it just brought so much natural bokeh. It looks so good. Even in the raw image, this looks pretty decent in my opinion. It's just very almost overexposed. It wasn't correctly exposed, and I didn't really care much for the color, but don't worry. I went ahead, cropped in a little bit, made it dark, made it more contrasty, also added more saturation to it. You already know how I am if you've seen more of my videos. And then next in the hayfield, or right next to the hayfield, we do have this tree. It has a little trailer next to it that's kind of being overgrown with weeds, but I left the trailer in. I didn't edit it out since it was fall. I made it a little bit more colorful. I also used a different editing style. This was like throwback to 2016. I'd say maybe 2019. I just picked a random preset that I had downloaded from many years ago, and I actually enjoyed it for some reason. I thought it just looked different than normal, and I feel like in this video I was just branching out and trying to edit photos not how I would, because I was just messing around and having fun, which turned out, I think, really good. This next photo of the barn, I absolutely love this as a raw image. This barn is so beautiful, and it is so well taken care of, especially for the age. And since I know the owners, I know how much has went into the care of this barn. I think the colors just in the raw image were so amazing. I like the blue with the orange and the red of the barn a little bit that you can see in the wood, and of course the green all around. I think it just looked just so beautiful. I don't know what else to say, to be honest, but in post, of course, I had to edit it, and I made it a little bit, now that I'm looking at it, it looks a little orange tinted, but I still love this photo. It's just very contrasty. I was in a mood. I was in a very colorful editing mood, if that makes sense, and I feel like this is a barn photo that might be on, like, you know those calendars that you might have in your local town that they make, or local county, and they make them for like 4-H, or even just to show your local national parks or state parks. I feel like that's a photo that could be in here if this barn was located in one of those. I'm not sure why, it just really brought me back to the home feeling of when I lived in Indiana, and how many covered bridge photos and barn photos I would see just throughout either social media or in general on calendars and other things that we would get in the mail, and also at 4-H. I think I have a special spot in my heart for this photo. I think my favorite thing right now is the fact that I have no idea what I'm going to be shooting next. I'm just walking around, enjoying the weather, enjoying the sound of the birds, the wind, everything like that, and just taking random photographs, and I haven't even taken that many yet. This is probably not the best spot to be filming because I'm in between two trees and the sun came out right when I sat down, so now I have this harsh light and two shadows on the side, but I didn't have my tripod with me. I left it up at the house. Alright, I really love how this Cub Cadet lawnmower is just sitting a little bit in the weeds next to the pond. I feel like I'm going to circle back and take a photo of that. And then here's just kind of what we're working with. A lot of trees, barbed wire, a lot of just random stuff. This is what I'm trying to get photos out of. What I really like right now, and hopefully you can see, is right here looking at this one orange tree. The sun has been going in and out behind clouds. It goes from dark to a really bright, vivid color when the sun comes out, and I've just been enjoying it because it almost looks like a whole spotlight on the actual tree itself. The main thing with photography is just light in general. It's capturing light in many different ways. And right here we do have this bush with all these little berries, and it's pretty much all in the shade except for this one red berry. I feel like that is the perfect photo, and it's also telling me it should be photographed just because of how the light is painting it. And then my husband and I, we created this little wood pile. It's a bunch of cedars that we went down in the woods and cut up that were fallen. And I tried honestly to get a few photos of this, but I didn't like in post how they turned out, so I didn't keep them. But looking at the photos, like I said, I wanted to try and capture this Cub Cadet. I did not like, however, this stick. I do believe it was a little sapling, but it was dead. And I didn't like how it looked coming out from pretty much at the end where the steering wheel would come out. And I ended up editing that out completely. Trying to clean it up, of course, made it more contrasty, brought out more of the green, and also tried to get more of the brown from the rust. And then we have more of an up-close shot. I really enjoyed how the International Cub Cadet looked, even though it's wore off, it's been sitting here, and of course all the moss build up from just years and years of sitting next to the barn. And I did the exact same edit that I had, the same colors on this one, just trying to bring out more of that color. Next, I really like this section of the barbed wire fence just because we had old barbed wire that is all rusty, and then you have some new wire, and I like how they were almost crisscrossing. In this part of the fence they weren't necessarily crisscrossing, they were kind of paralleling a little bit, and I just figured to darken this up and just of course bring out more contrast, it would help make the new shine from the old, or I guess the old pop out a little bit more with texture compared to the new, since the old was more in focus than the new. And that's exactly what I did. I also cropped in a little bit more so they were almost, if you were to use a grid, they were pretty much on the grid lines. That was my thinking when I started cropping and editing this. And also when I cropped in, you can see a little bit of rust on the new. The new barbed wire is out of focus a little bit, but that's just because of my f-stop and I was more focused on the rust at the time. But the points of the barb, you can see a little bit of rust and surface rust starting, which I thought was really cool. Next, I have a couple photos of the barn. Like I said, this barn is absolutely so beautiful, very well maintained, and I love this little red leafed vine that was coming out from some of the boards. So I did happen to photograph it twice. I edited both of them the same, just one, the first one was vertical, and then the second one, which was pretty much the same photo, I did a more horizontal. I like to bring out a little bit more of a brown from the wood to keep it from being so gray, and I felt like it helped make the leaves pop a little bit more, besides obviously adding a little bit of saturation or contrast. And then like I said in the video, we had this bush that was completely shaded except for this one berry. I have no clue why the light was being painted like that, but I thought it was a perfect opportunity, and I went with a vertical on this one. I also did more of a natural kind of vignette with this, and I focused more, or I wanted to draw more attention to the berry, so I kept it very bright and then I kind of darkened around it. And I hope you guys enjoy this one because I really also like this photo. I think my favorite thing about today is I'm just doing this video for fun. I'm just taking random photographs, and not every photograph I take will be great and not every photograph I take will be completely terrible. It's just one of those things that you don't really know until you're out, and taking photographs just randomly like this, even just around your house, is a great way to practice photography and also learn how to edit videos, and just get a feel for what you like. One thing that I always avert back to is no matter what, I pick up on textures. So some of my photographs might look really dumb, really boring, but at the same time I'm taking them more for the textures. Like on the side of the barn, there's texture on the rocks or on the wood, there's texture on the barn floor, there's texture everywhere, especially with like rust and things like that. And I also will eventually be doing this as like a challenge, but I love turning photographs, especially with texture, into black and white photos. I just think they turn out so great. It may seem in the moment like majority of these videos are just terrible little videos, but that's okay. They're videos to help me just get used to my camera, since it is a newer camera that I just recently bought. Of course, how to frame, how to play around, how to challenge myself, like right now with the 50mm, seeing how 50mm works and how technically how much more wide it is on a full frame camera versus a crop sensor like my 80D. So this whole thing is just a great challenge, a fun video to do, and like I said, I just get a little bit more practice. We love that. Also, I can get some more steps in, even though I already went to the gym. If you ever see those big YouTubers or even just the photographers in general, and you just think to yourself, man, I wish I could be that good, or I wish that I knew how to take take photos similar to that, or oh man, I don't have that good of a camera like they do, that's totally okay. You know why? We all start somewhere, and I started technically on a Canon PowerShot $50 like zoom camera. My first DSLR was an Olympus E520, and honestly, just practicing, getting to know your camera is one of the biggest things. Getting out of auto and going into manual mode is another great thing. And just practice, practice, practice. Don't give up. Don't necessarily compare yourself to others. It's good to view others and also admire others and maybe strive for their work. Nobody's the same. We all like different editing styles, different things. Like I said, I like texture. For the most part, when I edit, I'll have two variations for the most part if we're just talking about color, not black and white, because I love a good black and white photo. I'm either gonna go more natural, how it looks to the eye, or for whatever reason, I'm gonna go super contrasty and more like moody-ish. Not so much moody as like desaturated, just moody as in dark. Those are my two major things that I edit like, but not everybody edits like that. If you ever feel down, discouraged, anything like that, just get outside, just do fun little photos around the house. You don't need nothing crazy. You don't need to live in a big city. Trust me, we lived in multiple big cities because of the military, and as much as yes, it's cool to do street photography and other things like that, or architecture photography, or even just people watching, there are some times where being out in the middle of nowhere creates the best photos because they're more unique, or they're not necessarily a city that millions of people or even thousands of people have been to. And also because if it's your own home, you'll always be able to go out and take photos and enjoy and learn and practice and grow. And that's really all we want to do, is always have fun. Especially for me on my channel, I just love to have fun. I just love to try and challenge myself, to practice hard and try not to get discouraged, because don't get me wrong, do I wish sometimes I could shoot film photos or even edit like Peter McKinnon, especially with B-rolls and videos? Yes, by golly, yes. Am I there yet? No, and that's okay. Maybe eventually I'll be there, but on my own version of that, or even I'll find a happy medium and I'll find something and I'll strive for something else, and I'll reach a point where I get to have my own type of theme and my own way of editing. It just looks unique to basically me. So I guess my main thing I'm trying to say right now is just don't get discouraged. No matter what, don't get discouraged. I know it's hard, but get outside, shoot, learn your camera especially, and try and get out of auto. If you're already there, good job. You've already accomplished two major things. Feel comfortable. Go outside. Just shoot random stuff until you're very comfortable, and also learn how to edit. I'm not saying I'm really great at editing, but just even over the last year, I have changed my editing and I've tried to work hard on it, and I can see a big difference in my photos. So no matter what, practice across the board and everything will be absolutely beneficial for you, and you will definitely in time, if not in the next 2 weeks, definitely in the next 6 months or a year, you will see a change. And no matter what, you will always have a few supporters. Even if you don't know about it, there's always going to be someone out there who's going to love and enjoy your work and even look up to your work. You never know who's really sitting there behind, if you do YouTube, let's say, behind the screen saying, oh, I wish I could be as good as them. So don't get discouraged. That's my little tip for this video. I feel like I've spent a while actually talking in here, trying to give you a really good tip. I hope this tip is really good, and I hope that if you can take one tip from this video, it is more so the tip that I just gave, and I hope you can apply it to your next time shooting, or even next time creating a video, or even just a normal hobby. I'm sorry for rambling. I think because right now I'm kind of down in the barn, I'm just gonna walk a little bit up more by the house and just maybe take a couple more photographs. I don't think today's video is going to be super long, super crazy compared to even the board photography video. Sometimes short videos are just as good. Before I headed up to the house, I stayed down in the barn just a little bit longer, and one of the first things that I noticed when I was actually talking to y'all were these couple of chains hanging next to me, and there was one leaf randomly stuck into one of the links of the chains. So here in this first photo, this is how the raw photo looked. It was very dark, and I kind of underexposed a lot to get more detail from the background, or actually what was outside of the barn, because it was very bright. And then this is how I decided to edit it. I did take away a lot of detail from the background, but I wanted to keep the chains really dark, and then I also wanted that leaf to pop out. I feel like this is just a classic snapshot in a way, but at the same time it could tell a little bit of a story. And then hanging upside down from the rafters was this bike, and I wanted to make a more dramatic photo with it. I just kind of snapped it, but in the moment when I was editing it, I figured a darker, more moody tone would fit this bike really well. I did take out some of the purple sadly on the bike, but at the same time I added in a lot of orange, and in my opinion it is one of those photographs that you might see on Twitter every now and then for people doing street photography. They use a lot of orange and dark muted tones, and I really liked how this edit came out. So again, we have a simple photo. This is outrageously, even in the raw, it has so much grain and it's so noisy and busy, but we just have a couple ropes and chains sitting on a corner post for the barn. And how I edited this is, believe it or not, dark and moody again. For the most part, I just kept my subject as the chain and the ropes, and I darkened everything around it. Also tried to make it more out of focus, and then I just used a little bit more texture. Of course, changed the overall color to a more orangey tint to bring out some more of that rust in the chains. And then in the back of the barn, we actually had where the double barn doors that open on the backside for a pull through. It was letting in so much light, so I overexposed again for this one, and it has so much noise and grain in it, and it looks terrible, to be honest. But there was a strip of light just beaming in. You can't hardly tell compared to how I seen it in real life, and then also how I edited it. I chose to do a more dark, but I left that light, and I tried to make it more of how I seen it with the eye, because it was just a beam of light on that ladder, and I thought it looked so good, so beautiful. Then I had a different version. I was just farther away, and I chose to make that one a black and white. This next photo was more of a joke, but I did decide to keep it in just because of how I wanted you guys to kind of see my thought process. So again, with these double doors here in the back of the barn, I just love the fact that my eyes would focus on the background towards the pond. So everything outside of the barn and everything on the inside of the barn was basically just blurred in my mind when I was looking out. So we do have this raw image. It's very crooked. You can't really tell. And I did keep it. I straightened it and edited it just a little bit. But again, it's really hard to tell. I like the green strip and the green grass and trees through the doors, especially because this is basically how I was imagining it, or how I was seeing it in person. It was very cold and blurry on the inside, and then it was like warmth and greenery and just like the light at the end of the tunnel. So I wanted to try and recreate that, and it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted, but at the same time I decided to keep this to let you guys see my thought process, because not every photo definitely is good, and sometimes I edit photos very badly, and sometimes I want to just trash photos because I'm not really happy about them. But if you can see my thought process behind photos, I feel like it would help. And then we have the side of the house. This is actually a bedroom, and it has so many windows in it. It is so beautiful on the inside and also the outside. I just thought this with the reflection, of course, the reflection of the clouds and the sky was just so beautiful, and I really enjoyed the colors and just how this actually looked as a raw image. I did change it a little bit, and in the edited photo I brought out, instead of tan and muted, I made it a little bit more kind of like brown and darker. Looking at this photo now, there might be some things that I definitely want to change about it, but I'm going to keep it in here just to show y'all that sometimes you might realize some of your mistakes later on. And for this instant, I kept the sky to where it wasn't so blue, so contrasty, but I did not take away from that in the windows in the reflection. And I don't know how I missed it until now, but that is one thing I want to go back and maybe fix later. But for now, I'm just going to keep it to show my mistake and also put it in this video. But I love how this photo kind of turned out. I actually enjoy the color, but it's more of that teal and orange color. All right, I just swapped over from my 50mm to my 100mm macro, and I want to try and get a few close-ups of the shrubbery moss stuff that's down on the stone. This lens does an amazing job with the low aperture. I mean, the 50mm does too, because technically it's lower at 1.8 instead of 2.8, but this RF lens does an amazing job with having the more circular like bokeh, and with the low aperture, everything just looks more dreamy and really pretty. So I'm gonna try and accomplish that with this and maybe some other close-ups. Looking at this big ball of granite, you can kind of see what I was referencing when I was talking about the low aperture and almost like the circle bokeh. I just love how it isolates your subject just a little bit more. One, that's just mainly the lower f-stop, but the higher the quality of glass and the better constructed a lens is, the better the backgrounds look and also how they react with the subject. And sometimes I'm just still learning that honestly it doesn't matter what body you have, it's more of the camera lenses that you buy, and I'm sticking to my higher end lenses for sure. Here's some of that shrubbery that I was talking about. It's kind of like a moss and a shrub at the same time, but it's very low to the ground, and I absolutely love how the wind was a paid actor pretty much, and it blew a couple of leaves over into my shot. I thought it was so perfect, and I had such a low aperture that they weren't fully in focus. And then here you can kind of see in this clip how tall that shrubbery stuff is. We had a few weeds poking through, and I wanted to try and capture that, and then you can kind of see when I focus more on one plant in particular, more of that circular like bokeh. And what good is a macro lens if you you aren't using it for close-ups. I love trying to take close-up photos or even just videos of leaves because they have so much texture to them, and I just feel like it's something that we kind of overlook unless if it's a gigantic leaf like a palm leaf. Same with the fact of clovers. A lot of people try and get rid of clovers from their lawn, but honestly I love sometimes how they look, how they grow in. I just think they look so good. They're so plush, and sometimes they're really cool to try and get low and close up and photograph, and especially if there's like a ladybug or some other small insect roaming around inside of them. It's like its own little village or even forest. And then of course I had to do a few close-ups on flowers. I did try taking a few photos of them, but when I was editing them I didn't like how much the yellow was standing out, so I decided not to keep them, but I still think that they were very pretty and I left the video of them. So this first photo was just a random purple flower that was on the sidewalk, and I really wanted it to be more of the center of the photo and also of course more contrasty. I love making flowers more dark in the background, having really bright green stems, and also the flower being very bright and vivid. And so in this photo that's basically what I did. I did bump up the texture just a little bit, but for the most part I kept the flower at the center of attention and kept it more to the eye of how I was seeing this flower. And again, we have another angle, and I really love the leaves laying behind in this photo because when I go and edit it in this photo we'd still keep the flower as the main center point, but you can see more red and orange coming from the leaves. And also I love how blurry the background is. I just think everything about this photo looked really good. And I also love, since we're more close up and using the macro lens, how you can kind of see on the leaf or the leaves next to the flower, they almost have more of a fuzzy texture to them, which I feel like in real life if you were just to look at this flower you wouldn't necessarily notice. And especially around the center of the flower, I feel like that looking like hair is also a really good texture to try and photograph up close because it's not something that you might see on a regular basis. And then we have this really overexposed photo of a tree growing next to the rock foundation, and this isn't like the house foundation so don't worry about that, but I really wanted these leaves to stand out, to pop out, and I wanted the background also to be a different style than I've been editing to a point, because I've been doing more moody fall like orange type edits in this, and for whatever reason I decided in this edit to go crazy and I went with more of a blue in the shadows on the undertones. And I don't know, I like how the rock and stuff look, and I also like the color, the green mixed with the more red brown of the stem. I think it looks actually really good. And then we have probably one of my favorite photos of this whole day. I love how naturally this is a green bush, but it also has purple leaves from time to time, and right now because we were going into fall some of them were starting to turn red, so we have a lot of different colors going on in this photo, and I just loved it. I felt like it looked like a backdrop or even like a desktop for a computer or something like that that you would see, and I edited it pretty much keeping the colors the same. I just made it darker and a little bit more contrasty because I wanted that red in the middle of the photo to really pop off the page, and I think the purple with the green looks really good. And then the last photo we have is just a simple little fall decor that was sitting up on the front porch, and I love this because if you guys were from the 90s, early 2000s, or maybe this is even before then, you might have seen a lot of these characters in school. I feel like all of our teachers had these up on bulletin boards and maybe even up on our desk. For whatever reason, I just thought this was such a cute photo, especially with the foreground being a little bit out of focus and the sunflowers and everything just around her. I felt like already as a raw image, this was a pretty decent photo, but then I just kept it simple. I just wanted her to pop off just a little bit more, but also bring in more color to the entire photo. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I know it wasn't super crazy, super long, and I know the photos and the video clips weren't necessarily the best, but that's okay. I hope you guys could take a tip or two away from this video, and as always, I hope to see you on another video here on my channel, especially another photography video. If you're curious, go click back on my bird watching one, or even my board photography video. I have a whole playlist for photography videos going all the way back to 2019. Some of them are very bad, cringy, so be careful. Use caution when watching those. Thank you all again so much, and God bless.